We begin our second half hour with President Trump's stop in Iowa. WQAD was in Clive for his speech, which was rallying voters ahead of the midterm elections. So here's what he had to say, including 2 Quad City connections.
So now we're back where it all started.
President Trump back in the Hawkeye State, this time to campaign for Republicans ahead of the midterm elections.
You got to get out and you got to vote. The midterms are very important.
The president shouted out Iowa lawmakers like Marionette Miller Meeks.
He's running again, you got to vote for her.
And acknowledged how difficult the midterms can be for the party in power.
I hope you remember us for the midterms.
During his hour-long speech,
Just over 1 year ago under Sleepy Joe Biden,
the president repeatedly brought up President Biden and the Democrats, including several green energy projects and EPA regulations he's canceled or rolled back.
keep the environment clean. So much nonsense. I think it makes the environment dirty.
One of the biggest cheers of the night came when Trump mentioned high ethanol gasoline, or E15.
I promise to support E15 all year round.
It's an issue Republicans have been divided on, between those representing farmers and those backing the oil and gas industry. And gas prices are 10% lower right now than they were a year ago.
I was told that it was $1.85 that hit a gallon in Iowa.
But we should acknowledge there are many factors that go into gasoline prices, and the president has very limited power over how they fluctuate. Trump also mentioned biofuels and growing U.S. exports of biofuels to Japan. It hits close to home in Iowa, which is the nation's leading producer of biodiesels. But just one day before the president's visit, a new report found Iowa's biodiesel production dropped 30% in 2025 to its lowest amount in a decade. Again, there are a lot of factors that go into that.
Thank you to our E15 leaders.
But multiple lawmakers, including Iowa Representative Zach Nunn, said they're hopeful the president can help boost that local industry.
We're also making America affordable again.
On the economy, the president focused on the Big Beautiful Bill, which was signed into law last summer. The biggest accomplishment he and other lawmakers touted from it was the end to tax on tips and overtime. Judy Waldron is a Davenport bartender, and she says that's meant more money for things like groceries.
Well, it's definitely increased the money that I get to take home. It's been nice.
I would just like to say the same thing.
At one point, Trump even invited Judy up on stage with him.
Crazy. It was cool. It was a really cool experience.
Another Quad City connection came early on when the president said John Deere's chairman was in the crowd.
You just said you're opening up 2 massive plants because of tariffs.
One of those plants will be a distribution center in Indiana. The other will be a cutting-edge excavator factory in North Carolina. Both are set to open next year. And Deere & Company now clarifying it will maintain its primary distribution center in Milan, which employs 1,200 QCA workers. While touting John Deere, the president did not mention the hundreds of workers who have been laid off in Iowa and Illinois over the last few years.
The majority of Americans support our deportation policies.
Trump also focused heavily on immigration, though most of it was about operations along the southern border. Still, he did bring up Minnesota a handful of times, although he never directly mentioned ICE's deadly crackdown in Minneapolis. The closest he came was mentioning a survey on the topic.
It's 80%, that's more like it, of the people support our operation to remove really dangerous, bad people out of our country.
You are all under arrest.
But multiple national surveys say the opposite. In fact, a New York Times Siena poll from Friday says just 36% of voters approve of how ICE was handling its job, while 63% of Americans surveyed disapproved. At 2 points, hecklers interrupted the speech, one asking if the president would release the Epstein files.
You do know they're paid agitators, right?
The president acknowledged the hecklers and laughed about them with the crowd, but did not respond to the Epstein comment. Ultimately, it felt like a typical Trump campaign rally. He was comfortable with the crowd, joking with them throughout his speech.
We are entering a period that will be called the golden age of America.
1 year into his second term, the president praised the $12 billion farmer relief package, talked about lowering prescription drug prices, and claimed that life is more affordable for Americans now than it was a year ago. And that word affordability has been a big one this year for both Democrats and Republicans.
You know, it's a word that they came up with, affordability.
A highly anticipated survey from the University of Michigan just came out on Friday and found the majority of Americans feel worse about the economy than they did a year ago. Mexico, and they expect it to get worse with tariffs and immigration. Another CNN SSRS poll shows only 3 out of 10 Americans rank the economy positively right now. But on Tuesday in Iowa, the president had a much different outlook on the American economy.
The Trump administration has done more in 12 months than most administrations achieve in 4 years or 8 years.
And as the race to the 2026 midterms ramps up, the president kicking off his push to connect to voters in the first state to put his name on a ballot.
And you were with me from the beginning. All 3 times we won by a lot.
Now, outside the venue where the president was speaking, people of all ages were lining the streets and protesting his arrival. Many of the signs did revolve around ICE and the calling for ICE agents to leave communities locally and across the country, including in Minneapolis.
I have friends in Minneapolis, and whether they were from Minnesota or whether they were in other states, we're all neighbors, and this should not happen to anyone, let alone people that we are close to.
When asked if he would pull all immigration and border control agents out of the Twin Cities, Trump replied, quote, "We'll do whatever's appropriate." And President Trump's full speech is available right now on our News 8 Plus app, including more extended coverage of the day. You can download on your TV and watch for free.